Hello. Today I'm going to be making a video as to why Builder Pro is better than Combat Pro for controller players. Now, this is a really weird statement considering the fact that almost all controller player pros and experienced players use Builder Pro. However, I believe it's up to preference, and it's now, while Builder Pro does have an advantage, in my opinion, it's still completely up to preference. So, it's completely up to you whichever one you want to use. Now, right now, I'm just doing some 90s, terribly, of course. But you can see, I'm using Combat Pro. The only settings I have changed are my marker settings and my edit button, which is instead of holding down your right button on whatever, because it's a console thing, it's just left D-pad. So, this is a pretty bold statement to make, but I honestly like Combat Pro a lot better. It's just way easier to get a flow of building. And I'll always be at a disadvantage to experienced players who use Builder Pro, but still. Here, let me give you some of the reasoning. So, it's kind of like, so, as soon as Builder Pro was added into the game, I didn't use it, because, I just thought, hey, I really don't want to switch since I've been using Combat Pro for all this time, so I just didn't want to switch. So that's basically what I did. And it's been working out for me pretty well because it's all about muscle memory. So I just exaggerated the move of a 90. So it's much easier because you have much less chance of misinputting your buttons since it's a straight line either way. So you can't accidentally not place a floor here because you're going to have to use it to get to the stair. So you can't, unless you're like intentionally doing like some really slow 90s or something, which you shouldn't be. But that's really the only thing different about Builder Pro is the building. And so yeah, it's pretty obvious. It's honestly an opinionated thing, but I think it's just much better. So, like, and obviously you have an advantage because you can easily, you're much, because you're much better at doing this stuff, but in a 1x1, we can like just as easily do it since we have no risk of placing a stair, so you don't have to stop. However, whenever you're making a sky base, you might accidentally place a stair. And that leads me to my next part of the video, which is box fights. So, while technically you're at a disadvantage, it still can be much easier as a Combat Pro player. So I don't play claw. Sometimes in certain situations I may position myself as a claw player because my setup, it's kind of hard to see, wait. So my setup is fairly simple. I just play as a regular controller. It's pretty easy to understand like what's going on. So yeah, there's really no room for errors in doing this stuff. Build fights. So yeah, but in boxes and build fights like this, I'm not saying that it's easier to get a shot off in Combat Pro because I'm actually using custom, but it is still Combat Pro. I just changed my edit and my marker. I'd say, yeah, so we are at a disadvantage, but whenever you're switching between these instead of just pressing two different buttons, I'd say it needs much more focus, which may like be a bad thing, but you're already focused enough to the point where you're not gonna be just like switching the two buttons or pressing them, because these two buttons, L and R, are the two buttons that you need to press on Builder Pro for that. So you're just going to be spamming these buttons up. However, here it kind of trains your fingers, and it's not just muscle memory. It's like you're already focused enough to the point where you're like, okay, and your brain is like, okay, I'm in a situation. I need to be focusing a lot more than like just spamming two buttons and like actually focusing and like having to move through that. It trains your brain to be like much more critical on those situations. That's just my opinion. It's not like that's actually what's going on in your brain. But it does especially help to have that sort of focus. Okay, so now on to build fights. So I wouldn't say we're disadvantaged, but again, there's no room for error in the 90s, and I just want to demonstrate this. So let's say if you're on Builder Pro, you could accidentally not press R, which is that button right there. It's for the floor, and you could accidentally not get a floor, and then you realize your mistake and do that. And then you have to edit outwards, and then you won't get a floor in your next one either, so. But on Combat Pro, whenever you're 90ing, it's much easier because you're guaranteed always going to get that floor. By the way, I did just do that, but that's only because I wasn't looking down like a regular 90. By the way, that's why people look down. So this is kind of it. But in build fights, so let's say you're charging for high ground, you're gonna have to do like so one of my favorite things to do is just like don't ramp rush. So it's like kind of ramp rush, but don't. Okay, so you start off with a ramp rush, and instead of so what you're doing is you're starting off with a ramp rush, and instead of continuing with another triple layer, what you do is not that. It's kind of like doing this and then that, but you can't do that on Combat Pro. So the solution is obviously just to do. And then you can reach your destination much faster, because then you wouldn't have to, which it is possible, but it's much harder. And it's still a push, because let's say if you already have high ground and you're just pushing more, then yeah, that wall can protect it, but if they're under you, then there's no need to waste mats. And again, accidental presses, so let's say they're trying to shoot you down, but you just hit them with this rush, and they're below you, like let's say like they're out here, and they're like, even with a scar, so even with a scar, you would have already been above them, and you can get a nice shot off of them, even if they are doing this. And it's kind of a mix, like, so let's say, this is just a pump for an example, it's not like still in the game. Actually, you know what, I'll just use combat shoddy. So, you have this. So, with this, instead of like starting it off with a ramp, with this, you can like, and then you can move to ramp. So, demonstration. Or you can just do that. Tfue Classic, by the way. Really, with any shotgun, heavy shotgun might be coming back, so that's a good. Basically, I don't know. It's, in my opinion, this is like much better to use. In a lot of situations. Builder Pro does give you much better access. You can like do things much faster, because you can't immediately use a floor, then a pyramid, or a wall, then a ramp. That's kind of literally the only two combinations, because you can use these two, you can flip, and then you can use these two, and obviously you can use these two, in this order. So it's like really weird to think about it, but this is just my synopsis on it. I was just I actually left this in a Reddit comment about why I prefer it, because it gives you much smoother building. I really do hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I don't know, like it, and yeah, whatever. This is just my opinion on it. It's not like anything serious. It's just me screwing around in Fortnite and saying why I like this thing over this thing. But as a competitive Fortnite player, I play on PC anyways, so it doesn't matter for me. So, yeah. Yeet, and bye.